Hi everybody, how was my last tutorial part about the furniture items in the German language? Do write in the comment section. Now if you remember from my previous tutorial about numbers in the German language, I covered till the number 100. Now let's first look at some numbers beyond 100 and then I will show you how to ask and tell prices in German as well as how to value things in general but furniture items in specific. So moving on, as you can see from this table, numbers in the German language are also compound. 100 is 100 if you remember from that numbers tutorial. Then from that onward, it will be 101, 102, 103, etc. Coming to 119, 120, then 121. And this goes on till 999, and that will be followed by 1000. And then it goes on 1001, etc. 1661. So if the number 1 is coming, it will be pronounced as eins, like in the first and the third row, but otherwise it will be 121, 1661. Now note that the verb that will be used when asking and talking about prices is a regular verb in the German language, which is kosten, and it will be used in the third person singular. So for example, when we ask about prices, it is in German nach Preisen fragen. Der Preis, die Preise. But why it is N is because of the use of the preposition nach, which in the German language is a dative preposition. Now you don't need to be worried about this grammatical point yet. You just need to know how to ask about the price. And this is done in the German language with the question wie viel or was. Wie viel means how much and was means what. So wie viel kostet der Tisch or wie viel kostet die Lampe or wie viel kostet das Sofa. Or you can ask with the question what. Was kostet der Tisch? Was kostet die Lampe? Was kostet das Sofa? And the answer will be either by mentioning der Tisch kostet, die Lampe kostet, das Sofa kostet, or we can use personal pronouns in the German language, which not only are used to refer to people, but also to things. And note that the personal pronouns used will depend on the gender of the things. So because this is masculine, der Tisch, it will be er. This is feminine, die Lampe. So we will use sie. Das Sofa is neutral, so we will use es. So er kostet 225 Euro. Sie kostet 114 Euro. Es kostet 999 Euro. So moving on. Now let's first see how we can value things in terms of price. Value something is etwas bewerten, where the verb value is bewerten and etwas refers to something. There are 4 terms that are used to describe the price in the German language. Billig, günstig, preiswert, and teuer. Billig means when we're talking about something being cheap in terms of price. However, note that it can have a negative meaning also, in the sense that even though it is cheap, but the quality is low. So billig is not only used in a positive sense for meaning that something is cheap, but also in a slightly negative sense to mean that something is cheap because its quality is low. And we use billig when we are talking about some offer or some sale, which is das Angebot. Then we use günstig in the same manner as billig to mean that something is cheap when we are talking about the price. However, when something is cheap but good in quality, we will use günstig. So when referring to a thing being günstig, the quality should be good, not low as in the case of when we are using billig. And we use günstig when we are talking other than price about some offer, that's Angebot, some judgment, some decision, which is das Urteil, some opportunity, which is die Gelegenheit, and also when we are talking about some condition, which is die Bedingung. Now for the time being, you only need to know, other than der Preis and die Qualität, about das Angebot. So don't worry about the rest of these words as yet. Just note that the main difference between günstig and billig is that even though both mean cheap, but billish can have a negative side to it when we say that something is cheap because its quality is low. But günstig will only be used for a cheap thing whose quality is still good. Then we use preiswert in the German language, again referring to something whose price may be a bit expensive, but it's still worth to buy that thing. Worth is wert in German. Now, if the price is a bit high, but it's still worth buying, automatically means that its quality is good. So we use preiswert in this way, and we also use with the offer, which is Angebot. So we can say that some offer is preiswert. And lastly, we have teuer, which is expensive. And we can use this with the price. So we can say that something is expensive in terms of price. But we can use this also with the offer. So some offer is expensive. Also note that we can add sehr in front of these four terms, billig, günstig, preiswert, and teuer, to mean very, so very cheap, very expensive, etc. And we can add zu in front of these four terms to mean too, T-double-O. So zu billig, zu teuer, etc. Something is too cheap, something is too expensive, and so on. So moving on, we can also value things in the German language in terms of their physical appearance. So for this, adjectives are used. So we have one adjective, adjective, and we have its opposite, which is das Gegenteil. So big and small, groß, klein. But do note that groß can have two meanings in the German language. It not only means big, but also tall. So we can have the combination of tall and short, groß and kurz. Or we can have lang and kurz. Something is long and something is short. Gut, schlecht, good, bad. Weich, hard, soft, hard. Neu, alt, new, old. Then if something is modern and something is old-fashioned, we can have two possible combinations. We can use modern, written like in the English language, but pronounced differently, unmodern. But we can also say, particularly if we are referring to not something being modern and not modern, but in terms of fashion, we can use the adjective modish if it's fashionable, altmodisch if it's old-fashioned. But in German language, we often use un before adjectives when we are mentioning the opposite of an adjective. So even though you can remember this, but the way to remember modisch and altmodisch is by remembering that this adjective comes from the noun die Mode, which is fashion. Praktisch, unpraktisch. Something is practical or not practical. Schön, hässlich. Something is beautiful or ugly. Voila! We have a word that might shock you. It is similar to the English word hell because it's written like that. But please note that hell in German means light, and light in the sense of some color being light, or dark, dunkel. These adjectives are tricky in the German language because note that we use leicht in German to describe the weight of something, that is, something is light like a feather. We can use it in another sense also. When we want to say that some task or work is easy, we can use leicht for that, but we can also use einfach to mean that that task or work is easy to do. Do note that einfach will not be used in describing something being light in weight. In the same way, we can use schwer to mean that something is heavy in weight. We can also use schwer to mean that some task or work is difficult to do. But then we can also use schwierig to mean that some task or work is difficult to do. But we will not use schwierig to say that something is heavy in weight. We can use sehr to mean very and zu to mean too, T-O-O, before these adjectives to sort of intensify their meaning. So sehr groß would be very big, zu groß would be too big, etc. That was all for today. Do stay updated for part 3 of this tutorial. Thank you.